We're sitting at Meherazad in October of 1972 with Mani, who is going to continue the various accounts of the new life with Baba.
Well done. I don't think there's much to say about the new life.
Not much. We've only got about 14 hours so far.
In fact, I think there's nothing one can say about the new life. You know, the new life can't be talked about. We can only talk about the outward things, the activities, things that you can put down in a diary, in a notebook. But the new life is to be lived, as Baba says, even when there is nobody to live it. And that is because the new life was given life by Baba, the God-man himself, treading it, making a way for all in timeless times to come.
Living a blueprint, is that your interpretation of what Baba did in the new life?
He himself walked the new life. So the footsteps, he has left the footsteps for all people, for all times to come to follow. You know, he has made that. And because it is God himself, because the stamp of reality has been put on it, and that is what has given life to the new life. Otherwise nobody else could make the new life, couldn't tread it, couldn't do it. And not only that, it is already lived. The new life is already lived because Baba, on behalf of all who are going to follow, to live the new life, he has lived it on their behalf. Like when Baba said that no matter if all of you all kept silence all your lives, it wouldn't equal 1 hour of my silence. And if all of you fasted all of your lives, it wouldn't equal 1 day of my silence.
Thank goodness for that. I don't like fasting.
No, I don't either. But you see, Baba, when Baba does a thing, it is on behalf of all, because what he could do we could never equal even a mite of that, because when perfection performs even an act in illusion, it is perfect. So when he used to recite the repentance prayer, participate in it, when he would stand with hands joined, when we recited the Parvatigadha prayer and the repentance prayer, he on our behalf repented for all that we had done that was not right. So even if we repented all our lives, we could not have made up for all the wrongs we did. But he, participating in our repentance, in that prayer of repentance he said for us, it was like he was saying the repentance prayer on behalf of all the ones, the imperfect ones, the perfection itself, doing it on behalf of imperfection. That is makes it the real, makes it fruitful, makes it living, gives it life. Because anything we can do could only be dead, except where where we do anything with love, that has life. And because he is love itself, even things in illusion are given a life by the reality himself doing it. It is just his being the reality, his being the one that automatically, even a thing like non-reality can have that flavor of reality, because he has done it. And so he has to do it on our behalf. And so when he was the companion in the new life, he was being those that were with him, those that were to come, those that were for all times, because the new life was not just for that time, that the dates that we know of, It couldn't be. And that is why he said, it will go on living by itself even when there is nobody to live it, because Baba gave life to it, and so it is already lived. And all that come after and live it would be just going in those footsteps, footsteps of reality, left the imprint of his walking through the new life.
Mani, is this a point where one could ask what your feelings, your impressions, or perhaps knowledge in conversation with Baba as to the characteristics of the new life? What is the new life? Is it a way of feeling? Is it a way of wandering? Is it a combination of action and feeling? What are the characteristics of the new life?
Well, when Baba, as far as my impressions I can express, when Baba did anything, even in our life with Baba in all those years, when Baba did anything, it had many fruits, many results, many reactions. Because just like Baba said, I'm working on all planes at the same time, whereas we were only conscious of his working on the physical. That is as far as we could see, even if we felt the rest. Like you can feel the depth of the ocean even when you're standing by the beach, but we have not plunged in it. But we can know, as far as we are concerned, we can see the ocean. So just like, I think Baba had given that simile, or I don't remember, but like when 20 birds are sitting on a tree and only one stone is thrown, all the 20 birds fly away, not just one. So any little even the most casual act of Baba, although all we could see was just the outward picking up of the stone, it serves those 20 purposes. One of the purposes was us. Like in anything that Baba did during all those years we were there, are not only collectively, individually, for our training, our discipleship, our whatever instrumental ways we could be instrumental in for his work, which, as Dr. Donkin said in The Wayfarers, is hidden from our view. But this we know, that it is not just this or that, but it serves many purposes. And it is not only for us collectively and individually, it is for you all and all the many who will be after us and you, for universal. It's like when you drop a pebble into a lake. There's the splash, and there's the little ripple, and then there's a bigger ripple, and then it just in the end covers all. And whatever Baba did, we could tell from instances that happened when we thought his act or something he did was limited to this particular reason or this particular purpose. And we found out later, sometimes from his most casual remark, that it was not just for us or just for this. It was for us, for each one of us, and for each and every one of us and all. So you see, that's why I say we can only see that one panel, and even of that we can only describe what goes in words, like we walked from here to there and we did this and he said that. But whatever that may be, as I say, I feel the new life is already lived because it has already got life, and that life was put in it by the God-man himself walking in the new life.
And we, the rest
and
of humanity, will gradually feel into that pattern that he set.
That's right.
Inevitably feel
automatically.
Yeah,
we see some signs of it already, some of the change from that old pattern which we thought was set for all time. Standards, values, like these young people, their search and thirst, which we would never have dreamt of. Some years ago.
Even 10 years ago.
Even 10 years ago. So, Don, all I can now do to complete what Errett, of course, has given you a very comprehensive picture of the new life, all the real, the data that's side issues and the main points. And Mehera has filled in of all that happened or we went through from the women's side. So I can only pick up some interesting notes from my diary which would be interesting and which she may have not included. But before I get on to the new life, I feel that so often we have talked about the new life, and so often we have been asked about the new life. But so the new life has been talked about, is being talked about, and will possibly be talked about. But there is one aspect of the new life which has not been talked about, and that is those who did not come into the new life. Those who lived with Baba as we did, those because of obedience to his wishes, either were put in place like Bombay or Pune or Meherabad or sent to the West. Those people who were constantly in touch with Baba and came to see Baba whenever he allowed. All those people, all those persons, those hearts that loved him, and where they had the biggest challenge because they were to face separation and they were to believe 100% what Baba said. And he said, you must believe it, that when I'm going into the new life, I and the companions with me, you will have no contact with them, no connection with them, either by letter or word, and I will never come back, and you will not see us again, not see me again.
Has come out so much, Money. What a separation, because as Ari said, you believed it thoroughly, right down. You would never see these people, and that they would never see Baba, these who were being separated. So it was a complete uprooting. Like we thought we would never see Meherazad again. Yes.
Anything that was to be not discarded, but we had so much of our furniture was given away, and anything that we thought could be given away or sold, or everything was just taken away. It is now, it's just like women. Later we thought, oh, if only we kept that kettle that Elizabeth had brought in 19 so-and-so, such a beautiful kettle, that enamel thing, or
Elizabeth
what about
must
that?
have been the pack horse. Everything that everybody talks about, that Elizabeth brought it. And Elizabeth gave it to Marina and so on.
And that bread knife, and each one from their own point of view. But Arnavaz and Nariman, to whom the nursing, the care of Meherazad has been, and when they had to take over, whatever they took over, they kept as Baba's, for Baba to do what he liked if and when he came, without thinking. So they tried their best to keep as much as they could, like furniture and dining room set and things like that. And even the things that were given away or sold out, they went out and brought them back as much as they could, purchased them again as much as they could, to come and keep it like that. So those who let Baba go, knowing that they might never see Baba again, I think no matter what we went through in the new life, we had Baba with us. And looking back, we could have all those difficulties a million times, and still we would do it. But those that just patiently waited, just obeyed and stayed behind, they had no less part in the new life than we did. So I wanted just to mention them. I know what a shock it has been to certain close ones. I know how some people's health have suffered very much. And I know that some even pined away, like Vishnu's mother, Kaku. She was very close to us, and especially close to Mehera and myself. And there was Baba leaving, the best, the biggest, the everything. And then plus her son Vishnu, plus Mehera, plus money. And she died before we came back. And they said she was very broken-hearted. She was brave. But and I know some others of my household too, who the shock was, they really felt that this is the end. But they carried on, and Baba put everything right as he always does. But at that time, when he says a thing, even if he does a thing which we have known him do in the past, and so by on the very strength of that, if we think, oh no, it couldn't be, like when they would, Baba would have them build something very strong that would last, and then after it was built in a very short time, he would have them take it apart, just destroy it. Not destroy it, I mean, take it apart and rebuild it or do something, or he was leaving. So, if after some months, again if he tells them to build something and build it very strong, the thought must not pass their, of course the thought would pass, but they must still believe that yes, it is to be very strong because it is to last for a long time. Even if they recall the fact that, oh well, this thing's happened about 3-4 times and it couldn't. No, Baba would want you to believe, because only that way could the work, whatever work that he was doing through that construction, could be done 100%. Afterwards, it didn't matter. It was not our believing or thinking that mattered, but doing that helped him to do the work that he was doing through that particular phase. So, having talked so much even before coming to the new life, but I haven't much to tell about the new life because you have been very nicely told all that. So, as I say, some notes in my diary that I thought might not have been included in the narration by Erach and by Mehera and Meheru. When we started out on the new life, 16th October 1969.
We're very close to it, aren't we?
Rain and thunder and lightning.
Typical Baba weather.
That's right. So that we started out...
49.
49. I kept hearing 69.
49.
Yes, I did say that. I'm sorry.
You wrote it too.
I'm corrected, yes. 16th October 1949. Would you like to erase that?
No.
16th October 1949. When we started out on our new life, just as we were going out, walking out, it was amidst rain and thunder and lightning.
Did you feel sad?
No, not one bit. You see, just like Baba, we had been kept very, very busy before we started out.
No time to think.
No, you see, with Baba, there's no lolling about and thinking over things. You just did, because Baba was conducting it. It's like a symphony, an orchestra, and each one is so busy with their own instrument. So that neither do we see it as a whole, but we are each busy to make that whole. So, then the next is, when our first real stop was in Belgaum, a sort of a little training ground, a sort of a pre-period of the real new life, as Baba called it, before we started. In Belgaum, having broken away from the old life, he settled us in Belgaum, and there we reached there on 20th October. My diary says it was very, very cold and damp. In fact, it was so cold that I was told later that Adi Senior, who was there at the time, he would wake up in the night and just run round the little cottage that had been kept for where we settled for some time. He used to run round and round just to get warm in the middle of the night or at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that is where Baba gave each of us a blanket, what we call kamli, the coarse hand-woven village blanket, which is made from wool, lamb's wool, but coarse, not refined, out of which that coat that Baba wore the kamli coat, that old coat. You see that each one was given a kamli. And at
Is that
other...
the old patched one? Not the patched one.
Yes.
Is it that
That
one?
is made, yes. That is
Oh,
made
it's
of
made
that.
from this kamli.
Originally, it was made from that.
I see.
It was made by Yashwantrao, the one with Upasni Maharaj.
I had thought the
So
old
that-
patch coat came from even before the New Life, but that's
No,
that period
that
of
did
material.
not come in the New Life. I'm saying it is of the same material.
Oh, I see.
That came long, long ago, the coat, I mean, that was given by Yashwantrao. When Baba left Upasni Maharaj,
Yes.
Yashwantrao gave him that coat.
The old
and
patch coat.
Yes. But it is that same, it is made out of that same rough, hand-woven blanket that they weave
Yes.
in the villages. Now that kind, that kamli blanket, not the kamli blanket, Baba gave each one of us. And ordinarily, we would have found it terribly coarse and, but it was so cold and it was so welcome. We couldn't have thought of anything nicer or more beautiful than that thing.
Money, how did Baba sleep on the New Life, during the New Life? Did he have a sleeping bag or roll up in a blanket, or how did he sleep?
You see, the caravan was there. So next to the caravan was a semi sort of awning, semi-tent like thing. So
Well,
that part of it was the caravan and part of it that Erich used to fix,
to
nail.
the ground.
And, yes. And one day I have in my diary that one day during our travels, somewhere when we were in the north, it was raining and it rained through the little tent, and the mandali who were sleeping outside were just drenched through. We in the caravan, the 4 women slept in the caravan, were all right. But later it was not always the tent either. But actually the mandali slept absolutely in the open, under the trees. And Baba had just that semi-protection over him.
Is this
I
the
could
same
hardly
little tent
call
that
it
Arish
tent.
spoke about that Elizabeth Patterson had brought? It was a little nylon tent.
It was not a full tent, I don't know. I really don't know.
Perhaps he used that later on, Elizabeth Patterson's.
I could be. I don't know. Now, in Belgaum, Baba was really the companion in the sense that Baba worked, did labor along with the other men companions. It says here, put up tents. Baba helped men draw water from the well. Baba carried vegetables over to the men's side, because remember, whatever happened, wherever, even in the New Life, wherever we landed, wherever we stayed, the women's living was completely separate and some distance away from the men. And Baba would go over from one side to the other. So at that time, when the cooking was done at the men's side by Kaka, the vegetables Baba carried over from the women's side. And he carried that basket of vegetables on his head. All sorts of things. Baba carried vegetables from us, and helped the men draw water from the well, and did all the other work as it was done. Then from 1st November, we women took over the cooking, and Baba helped us in the kitchen. I still remember we made a stew one day, put all the vegetables together and made. And something went wrong, and it was just dreadful. And we didn't know what to do with it. It had to also be sent over to the men, and it just went wrong. And I write in my diary, Baba saves it by directing all sorts of things to be put in it. It turns out to be the most delicious. All like and praise it very much, including the men. And then you see later again...
Pretty good cook.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. He would
He's
turn
cooked
it.
up quite some stews in life when I
twist?
think of it. He's cooked up quite a few stews in life when I think of it.
And then it's just that little twist, that touch would change it. Patties, potato patties. When Baba would add this, and he would make it. He made it once. Oh, we'd never eaten anything like this anywhere. And Baba did help Kaka.
Avataric patties for lunch. How about that?
Later, Kaka cooks. Baba helps there too. Made excellent potato patties. That's what the note says. Then I write, every evening we sing the New Life song. Baba makes it clear he wants immediate obedience to his orders.
Who composed the New Life song? Was it Baba himself?
Well, Baba gave points, and then Gunny composed,
did the
and then
major
Baba
writing.
gave lines, and then he again, took out some, added some, like my stew, gave it that real beautiful touch, and he gave the material too, and he made it. But it was done by Gunny, Dr. Gunny, Abdul Ghani Mansur. In Banaras from 15 November. Yes, when we were in Banaras, because you see, I had done puppets long before when Baba was in Meherazad, and had put up a puppet show. And Norina had said at that time, if money could sometimes, if you really need to get a job, or Baba tells you to go out and get a job, what you should do is puppets. And we laughed over that at the time. But in Banaras, when we were in Banaras, in that huge palatial house that Erich and Mehra must have told you about, there Baba said, all right, you all make puppets, because after when we leave from here. So when we were in Banaras, Baba said, all right, now after we start out on the new in real earnest from here, you'll have to earn your own, earn something, do something that would, like puppets, make puppets. And
did you actually, Money? Did you do some puppeting?
Yes. No, but I'll tell you. And then we will, wherever we stop, people can come and see it. They would like it. And that would be bhiksha too, you see. So we started. I made the faces, and Mehra and Meru and Gaur, they were helping me. Mehra made the
Were they
dresses,
hand puppets or string puppets?
Hand puppets. Hand, just
put your hand in it.
Yes. And I made one little puppet was Krishna, and Mehra made all the jewelry and the crown, and Meru was sewing the dresses. And we did that, and we were going to still do more, but Baba dropped the idea. Baba proposes and Baba disposes. That we used to. And
That's what God's supposed to do, they say.
He gets both ends, because man proposes and God disposes.
No, but
So
God proposes.
He gets both of
Since
them.
he's everything.
Yes, but this is God proposes and God disposes. So we did, I put that about the puppets in. And the men I write here, they put on their kafni and the turbans from Banaras, from 24th November. And kafni and paguta. Paguta means turban, you see. On 1st December, we were in Sarnath. That's about 7 miles from Banaras. I know Mehra has told you about our stay there. Now, at Sarnath is the place where Buddha gave his first sermon to his disciples.
Is that still a Buddhist center there?
Yes, there is a beautiful stupa.
They have monks and
Yes, so you
a
see,
convent perhaps?
a few days later we went to see the stupa and the ruins and monasteries and temple with very beautiful paintings depicting the life of Buddha. When we visited, we saw it. Baba took us to these places to see it. Baba asked me to write on a piece of paper all the avataric names, Zoroaster, Ram, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, MeherBaba, all of them, and he put it in his pocket. I don't know what happened to it afterwards, but he made me write down those names and he put it in his pocket. And then he walked in the underground passage in the ruins. Yes, after putting that in his pocket, he went, there was an underground passage amid the ruins. That is where they later, Baba went with the men companions, and he sat in that underground passage on just the loincloth. It was for a while, that was the men's side of it. And at one time Baba said, in the new life, we must speak the truth. And when we start on our walking fakiri, walking poverty, we will meet both ridicule and respect, but we must be indifferent to both.
Mani, did Baba elaborate on following the truth at the time that he said that one must follow the truth in the new life? One must speak the truth?
Speak, yes. During the period of the new life, he was strict on that. So we
no little white lies,
no, not at that
diplomacy
time.
to cover up a
no,
touchy
not
situation?
not during that period.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, Baba wasn't strict about that. But at that, for that particular work, that particular period, yes.
Now, when you say that particular period, do you mean the whole period of the new life or a certain phase of the new life?
I would say
Excuse me for pinning you down.
Up to that, the Manonash period and the fiery free life, but the new
Just
life,
about all
the
of
period
it,
of the new life, we were
Strict
very
truth.
very strict about that. But so that if even in fun, if we were asked where we were going, we always said where. And because on our walking, but that I'll come to later. Now, Now, while we were in Sarnath, preparations were afoot for the procession and the walking fakiri, the walking poverty, as Baba called it. And the men had their kafnis and the green turbans, but the women, so Baba had us sew warm flannel, sort of warm woolen material, but very light, kafnis of that because it was very, very cold. And so kafnis were made for us, and pieces of cotton material for turbans. And to demonstrate how a turban should be tied amongst us women, Baba tied the turban round my head. But we never in the new life actually wore the turban and the kafni. Actually, the first day when we started out, so then it was decided that we should wear saris maybe. So light blue cotton saris were gotten. And we wore that for the first day, so that the first day when we started out on that day in real earnest, that walking fakiri, that was on the 12th of December. It was 7:30 a.m. We started out at 7:30 a.m. on the New Life walking. It says, mad rush and hurry as ever. Dr. Nath and Kerr, etc. were standing at a distance. Our long procession started. Animals first, with white horse, Dr. Duncan leading the white horse, camel cart, Baidu driving the camel cart, bullock cart, Pendu driving the bullock cart, 2 cows and 2 calves, Dr. Duncan and Dr. Nilu looking after them, walking side, caravan, not us in it, just the caravan and things in it, 2 donkeys, and then Baba, some of the men that were Baba and Erich, in white kafni and green turban, and we 4 women in blue cotton saris. But that was only for one day. The cotton saris were then dropped, and we went about in our usual clothes, long
Yes, these anklets or trousers with a blouse
and
that
the
you wear.
blouses. That's right.
Did the women and men walk together or
No,
separate?
always at a distance. Now this is what I described was that first day. We must have made a beautiful picture, and the only one, apart from the people like Dr. Nathan Kare, who were allowed to stand at a distance, and they're the ones who had given all the animals and things. Apart from that, only Padri was there because he had come to deliver the caravan. And he was told not to take a picture, not to talk, not to see, just be at a distance. And he said it was just imprinted on his mind that picture. He said you could not have known it because you were in it, but it was really terrific. It was a beautiful picture, all that long procession of caravan of horse and the camel and the cows and the bullocks and the donkeys and the caravan, and then and the companions in the white kafni and green turbans, and then Baba and Erich, both in white kafni and turbans, and then some distance away, us women, so that we had to keep only so much distance away from Baba and Erich, and not lag behind, but not. And then Baba would sometimes stop Erich there, and he would just come to us, sometimes walk with us, or sometimes when Bhiksha was given. But you have that story, how Bhiksha was taken from the hut, asked and begged.
Yes, I remember your
Yes,
description
and
of delight with this hot bread.
Yes.
And Meher would mention the same
Yes.
thing too. That made a great impression.
So see, this is the first day's picture, and the camel had that bell around his neck, that silver bell that Aloba now rings to remind you at 6 o'clock or 5:45, be ready to leave Meherazad. And in Hafiz, the poet, the perfect master and poet, whose poetry Baba loved so much, Hafiz had mentioned this camel's bell, had mentioned the camel bell in his poetry, because it is to symbolize progress. You see, when a caravan would stop of the camels at some place when traveling in the desert, the leading camel had this bell. And the camels and the people and all, they thought it was wonderful when they'd stopped in an oasis, and it was so lovely. And they thought they didn't want to move. So the bell says, and Hafiz compares it to that, the bell says, you have not reached your destination. Go on, go forward, go forward. So the bell, he would use that charas. So there was that. And one day, I think that one day something happened. You see, that camel cart would not carry things for us, but it was piled with food, hay. I mean, when I say food, I mean food for the animals, hay, fodder, whatever is necessary. And the Mandli would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and first thing attend to the animals. We would see them from far away under lanterns, lighting their lanterns, chopping the fodder, and seeing that the bullocks and the cows and the donkeys and the camel and all were well fed before they could even hope for a cup of tea. And if by that time we had started our preparations, and if there was by chance some time, they would have enough time for a cup of tea, otherwise not, just start on their walk. So one day, this camel cart full of fodder and thing, it was stopped in some place, and Baidul walked over to do some talking with some of the others, and before we knew it, that camel, you see, wherever we went, that camel cart, if it stood somewhere, all the children would gather. Everybody would be around it. It was a lovely sight, and children would say, there's a camel cart. And what the children did, we don't know, but the camel took fright and ran. He was running along the streets with that camel cart at the back of him, bumping, and Baidul shouting and running after him, and all the children running after them, and then the people wondering who they were running after. Everybody in town seemed to be running after that camel and the cart, and until Baidul caught it. And you see, that is what would happen whenever we stopped at any place. They had never seen such a sight before. It was because we were different. You couldn't miss seeing that we were not the kind of people who would go on a pilgrimage on foot. And what is this? So all kinds of people here. They're dressed in kafnis and turbans, but they don't look like the natives. And they have the most extraordinary
Retinue
and vehicles. There's a camel cart. It's a beautiful wood thing, different from any shape you've seen. There was a bullock cart which had an English bull and an Indian bull, and there was a caravan that looked like a bus, but it was driven by bullocks, and all these people, and there were women in it too. And most of all, Baba, if somebody crossed past us on the way during our walking, and later the caravans and things went ahead or came later, and it was just walking, and Baba and Erich would be in front, and then we women behind, and we would see people passing by, and they would suddenly stop and look at Baba, and just look at Baba, until he had gone far away, still standing absolutely still, just looking.
Baba himself was
yes,
the focus
just
of attention.
Baba himself. I mean, we have known that happen even when he was in disguise and no kafni, or even on a crowded station platform, when we would think people would be so busy they would have no time for anybody. We'd have seen them, everything stop like a tableau, and people just look at Baba. And then suddenly, when Baba had passed away, the tableau again started moving, and they'd go on shouting and throwing their bundles and calling for coolies and running helter-skelter. But with Baba it was always like that. So wherever we stopped, just about the whole village that was nearest to it, because we would be on the outskirts of the village, we would be under a mango grove or a place like that, they would all come. And the men would be interested in the bullocks and the carts and things, and the women would be interested in us. So when we would stop, I think Meher's told you that, how there was absolutely no privacy, and
She said they didn't even know the word.
No, and they didn't. They would say, of course, go on, whatever you were doing. And Gabriel would come out, and because we had not to get angry, we had to speak the truth, and we had not to show impatience. Very gently, very diplomatic, we were trying to tell them, will you please go and leave us alone? But we could only say, we have to have tea now, we want to rest now, we've come from a long way. Oh, yes, go ahead. They would come closer and squat and expect us to, because that is how they would do it, And then when they knew that we were going to Haridwar, which is one of the places of pilgrimage, these people, more of them would come, and they would try and touch our feet in darshan, so that when we went to Haridwar and we bowed down, we would also be doing it on their behalf. You see?
They would get the benefit then.
They would get the benefit from that too. And I remember once when the caravan was going and everything, and we were behind, and a bullock cart passed us, and just a man was sitting on it. The bullock cart was empty. And he saw us walking, 4 women, and he said to Meru and I, who were together, and he said to us, why don't you all sit down in the cart? And we said, rather virtuously, I think, we said, oh, no, thank you very much, but we can't sit down. You see, we're on a walking pilgrimage to Haridwar, and we have to walk. So we can't take a bullock cart, or, we have to walk on feet, paidal. Oh, so he bowed to us, and we bowed back, And he hadn't gone maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and there was a clap from Baba saying, women, get into the caravan. Oh, get into the caravan? All right, Baba said it, so we got into the caravan. And it was very exciting. Meru and I sat on the seats and opened the little curtains of the window and put our heads out. We were in the caravan, we could see everything, And suddenly, after a while, the caravan passed a bullock cart. And the man in the bullock cart, the driver, happened to turn, and he looked at us. And he seemed familiar. But the look in his eye, he looked at us so reproachfully. I mean, somebody who had been hurt and deceived. At the same instant the thought came, we suddenly remembered, and Meru and I just ducked in. We said, oh, we told him we never sit in a carriage, we must go walking. So Baba just deflated our egos like this after that. And then, very little while after that, Baba said, women, get down from the caravan, walk. So we walked, but we didn't show off anymore. What's that, tea? Let him bring
some tea? Okay. Camera action.
We were in Moradabad, North India. when it was 1950 New Year, 1st January 1950. And that morning, Baba wished everybody happy new life. Not happy new year, but happy new life to each one. And he gave a bit of cake to each one. And then my diary says, from today, every morning, the Mandali, that's the men companions, say the prayers in 4 languages.
It was done every morning after.
Every morning. In English, in Hindi, in Marathi, and in Gujarati. Like Baba, to represent all religions of the world, he took 4 to symbolize that. So in the 4 languages, of course, now the Mohammedans, companions, those who were Mohammedans, they said it in Urdu. The Parsis said it in Gujarati, the Hindus said it in Marathi, and Dr. Donkin would say it in English. So it was said in all the 4 languages, the prayers every day. Then on 3rd April, there's a note, on 3rd April, we were in Manjri Mafi, just outside of Dehradun, which is now known as Meher Mafi, because Baba stayed there with us. I said, Baba finished his work with sadhus today by contacting and bending down to touch the feet of each one, 3,000 in one day, taking about 11 hours to do so.
Baba bowed down to 3,000?
To 3,000 sadhus in one day, bowing down, bending down to touch the feet of each one, and then touching his forehead, touching his fingers to his forehead, touching their feet with his hands, fingers, and then touching his forehead with his own hands. Like this. And so he bent down 3,000 times.
Mummy, what's that wonderful doctor in Bombay who tended Baba's neck, in the latter part of Baba's life? The nerve specialist. Gindi.
Dr. Gindi.
Yes, I remember talking with Gindi while Baba was still in the body and asking, you remember I was so terribly concerned about the pain and wondering if it might not be somewhat of a gouty problem that he was having. And Gindi, it bears on what you've just read there. Baba's bowing down 3,000 times in one day. Gindi said, no, Don, I've looked at Baba's x-rays very, very carefully, and I can see that it is actually a wear on 2 of the vertebrae in his neck, an extraordinary wear which has narrowed the channel through which the spinal nerve passes. And he said, this type of wear, I can only account for it by Baba having bowed down for so many years to so many people's feet that it actually wore those neck vertebrae, wore the bones out, and therefore narrowed the channel through which the spinal cord passes. But I've never heard a figure like this before. It's no wonder. It's extraordinary.
He had gone with the men Mandali from Manjri Mafi to that place called Motichur that Eris told you about. So you see, he would walk from Motichur to this place and contact sadhus. So on 3rd April it says, Baba finished his work with sadhus today by contacting and bending down to touch the feet of each, 3,000 in one day, taking about 11 hours, and walking back to Motichur, dead exhausted.
Ah, gracious. Ought to be an avatar.
These sadhus were in akharas. Akharas, Erich could explain, not colonies, yes, maybe that sort of thing, where they gathered.
Little nuclei.
Yes, that's right. So some of the sadhus in akharas were, these are the different kind of sadhus: Udasi, Nanga sadhu, Nirmali, Tyagi, Mahatyagi, Vanvasi, etc., etc. These are some of the names Baba had given us. Then on 4th, Baba returns to Manjri Mafi from Motichur. It was very windy there in Motichur, where Baba used to walk 4 miles every morning at 4 o'clock to Haridwar to contact the sadhus streaming in for the Kumbh Mela, the great Kumbh Mela. That's the opportunity that Baba used, the instrument. So he used to walk from Motichur to Haridwar every morning, walk 4 miles starting at 4 o'clock in the morning. Erich used to be with him, and to contact the sadhus streaming in for the Kumbh Mela. He would go to the different akhadas, the nuclei as you call it. He would go to the different akhadas, and Baba told us that sometimes he contacted some very good ones. That means he bowed down and contacted thousands, but there were a few very good ones that he was really pleased with. And he would tell us. Then I write, Baba's whole body is aching and feverish, utterly exhausted. He has finished his work there. On the whole, contacted over 10,000 sadhus. Then this is 12th April. After that, Baba visited with us Haridwar itself to witness the Kumbh Mela on the day when it was to be congregated, for which they were streaming in and all this was going. The great day comes, the Kumbh Mela, when it is impossible to describe the congregation, the mass of people, and the faith with which it was all done. And we watched from the terrace of a hotel, a Goel's hotel. So this Goel obviously knew Baba and respected Baba, but he was not allowed to see Baba. He was just told to see that we and Baba and the women could all be up on the terrace and watch the occasion. And there would be the river and all the people around it, the mass, absolutely solid mass of people, and the little boats with the flowers and lights going down the river. And it was a sight to see. Very colorful, very simple, and yet very, very exciting at the same time.
But on this occasion, Baba joined you.
Yes.
At the hotel balcony,
Yes.
as it were, to look at all of
But
this.
messages would go down, you see, to the mandali maybe. They were down below if anything was to be conveyed to them. Something happened, I don't quite remember, but Baba was dissatisfied with some arrangement of that terrace there. Something had happened. Either there was some delay in something he wanted done. Anyway, Baba was angry. He looked, he flashed, his eyes flashed, and he sent down messages that to tell Goel, the proprietor of the hotel, that this was not done as Baba wanted it, or that it should have been done like this, or the time was like this, something, that Baba was displeased. The fact that Baba was displeased and out of mood for something that had happened, which meant that something that had happened to make his work less satisfactory at that time that he was doing. So this message was conveyed back and forth. Then, as usual, when the thing was done, it was complete calm. Baba, not only...
Wipes out the mood.
Yes. And then the whole thing was over and we were leaving the place. So as we were leaving the place, because Baba was with us women, the mandali was some distance away. But Baba saw the man, the proprietor, standing there, and he told me to go and tell him that Baba was very pleased with what you did, and that Baba is sorry. He was angry with you. He got angry with you, even though it was at a distance. Now he got angry with you, and so Baba apologizes. Now, for someone to carry that message is in itself very difficult. But when I went and looked at the man and looked at his face, it was tremendously difficult. So I quickly said what I had to say, and the man just looked down. He didn't lift his eyes. He just couldn't. But he knew that this was Master's orders. This was what he was conveyed. But he could have wished for the earth to open up and be swallowed. But then again, I repeated that Baba said, he told me to say in the end that he was very pleased, very happy with his service. And when I came to the apology part, the poor man just bowed his head. Like that. So that was the great Kumbh Mela.
Mani, just a mechanical detail here. When Baba would be, let's say, walking along with you like this and suddenly want to give a message to the hotel proprietor, would he do this by gesticulation at that time? Or did he always carry an alphabet board? Did he use an alphabet board? I've often wondered.
Baba used alphabet board at that time.
For instance, when he was walking out of the hotel and gave you this message, would he stop and take out his alphabet board or have it under his arm?
Well, we would carry the alphabet
so he'd quickly
board. Very
have
quickly,
it made
but
available.
he would either do it through the alphabet board, or if it was short or something we could understand,
through gesticulation.
Gestures.
So the roots of his later complete communication by gesticulation were already occurring in that period.
Yes, he would use both, but he
see.
would use the board too. And that, yes. Then on 1st May, Baba goes with the men in Kafni and Paguta, Durban, for bhiksha from 3 lovers. From today, all are in B group, new plan. That is, they had to work and earn, making ghee, clarified butter, that sort of thing. And
sounds like a football team with various different plays that you're going to carry through.
So Baba goes with the men for bhiksha from 3 lovers that were in Dehradun. And it is celebrated because now they're all in B group, new plan. So to celebrate, they have a sweet dish and have their hair cut at last. That's what my diary says. The men, companion, at last have their hair cut. A barber was probably called in, and they were allowed to have the haircut. Then on 22nd May, Baba went to Delhi for a week to change plans for the poor Mandle who are making ghee in boiling temperature and starvation diet. All that was changed. They made the ghee. It was, the story. That's already Erich has given it. So, on 1st May, it was celebrated that this would be done. On 22nd May, Baba himself goes over to Delhi for a week and changes all those plans. But in the meantime, what they have gone through, the men have had to go through that. So
Duncan was involved in that, wasn't he?
Yes, Duncan, yes.
I remember his tales because he came to the West, just really in the latter part of the new life, because he had to get some money together. You remember? Duncan came independently, and I remember his stories about that messy, smelly ghee business that he had been involved in.
That was that boja. Boja means burden. You see, there was to be no burden, no obligation from one to the other of any kind. That is why when all this was also disbanded, Meherazad and all, as I said, we gave anything that was of value, anything that would fetch, and everything was squared up. There was to be although it was done with love and gift and heart, no, Baba, at that time, you see, there were no debts, no obligations, and everything was
evened out.
Evened out, that's it. So, yes, and Dr. Duncan was very much in it, right through, really. So, during his absence, we sew and make things, that's we women. So our part of the earning and doing something was, we were making sewing things and applique work and lovely bedspreads and things. And I put here, we got rupees 200 profit for 2 months' work. It was beautiful, the things we did, but we had to go and sell. Now, 25th July finds us in Satara. And Baba said it is the most eventful day of the new life. Baba sends personal messages and salutations to all disciples and devotees in East and West. He fasts on water all day. In morning there is a program of prayers and reading from English translation of Bhagavad Gita and Song of the New Life sung by a kawal from Bombay. In afternoon, Baba works with the mad and musts, shaving and bathing them, gifting clothes and beddings to them all. So they were fetched, they were sought and brought to Baba.
Did Baba say why he chose the 25th of July? There was no particular significance in his life, was there?
Not as far as I know or remember now.
Yeah, just a chance.
Then on 27th July, Baba twice begs bhiksha. Bhiksha is alms, but I'm hesitant to say that word since I know that alms in English only means money.
Usually.
Where there was no exchange of money. Here bhiksha means food in kind, Baba twice begs bhiksha, once at the home of a Hindu and once at the home of a Mohammedan. That is the 27th July. Well, I can't think of any more notes, but some observation, like even during our life with Baba, how Baba not only worked on all levels, but worked with and through all of creation, all creatures. Therefore, all these pets that Baba's kept, birds and animals that we've had, one after another during our life with Baba, and in one of my earlier diaries it says in the evening, before retiring to his room, before Baba retired to his room, Baba would go around with us to each of the pets, every cage, every box, every pen, every room, and the last thing he did before retiring for the night would be to visit each of the pets. And like when we were with Baba in Delhi or anywhere, traveling with Baba in the blue bus from place to place, one of the invariable things which it was made to appear that it was just for our sightseeing was the zoo. So Baba's contact with all the animal world, where they were gathered. He would because he wouldn't give us time to enjoy the zoo and the animals. He would go sometimes fast, and often we have to trot behind him. But my point is that the work that he did, he was here not only for us in the human form, but also for the animals and the birds and all creatures. In the same way, in the new life, it was not only the companions, the men and the women, but they were represented. And what part they had in Baba's plan cannot be imagined by us, but we know, we can feel it. And some of the animals, when the whole thing wound down, some of the animals were given away free, some of the animals were sold, some were auctioned, and some were kept. Some were gifted, and some were kept.
Sounds almost like a walking Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Yes, you see.
Mm-hmm. Mani, what was the reaction of the animals and the birds to Baba?
This is not the new life.
No, just in general. Because when I think of it, he did.
Well,
he was always around
they
animals.
were very receptive to the love that Baba showered on them, gave them, the real love. And there was no doubt about that. Baba was very particular about the pets care. And we were reprimanded if anything happened to the animals, or as Rana had said in one of her stories, say we had a cage of different birds. One bird flew away. I'll just say it in short. One bird flew away. Baba would have nothing to do with the rest. They were all to be taken away and a fresh lot brought over. And Baba would be very distressed, very disturbed over that. So it was obvious that it was not just that. And Baba loved feeding the birds. What I mean is all the pets, all the animals. Baba would want them to eat a lot, eat well. So that even after we had fed them, Baba would say, "You are not looking after the pets. Look, they're all hungry. You gotta feed them. Get some more." And then he would give them more, and they'd gobble it.
Is that how Peter got so chubby?
Yes. And Mastan. Oh, that's a book in itself. Someday maybe the tape or the book can be just some year about the pets.
Lenny, what was your overall feeling about the new life? Was it a tough time? Was it a wearing time?
Well, you see, it was not just physically tough. It was rough. It was a rough life, but the obedience part, the other side of it, you had to be absolutely alert, and
Baba demanded a great deal of attention from
that's
you.
right. Not so much demanded attention, our complete
Care and
attention
detail.
and focus on carrying out what Baba said we must do. And we would slip up sometime, not even aware that we were doing it, but Baba would be there to know, to catch us upon it.
But he insisted even more than in the pre-new life.
Yes.
On strict obedience and minute detail.
It was a speeding up. It was an amplification of all that and one of the things when we were in Belgaum, for instance, Baba said no reading of any kind. So, well, that didn't mean we didn't sit and read detective stories. We couldn't read anything lying about, like a newspaper. Now, or Hungarian or Czechoslovakian or something. So we were quite free and knew that we didn't have to strain not to look at the newspaper because that would mean reading.
Yes. But even if a truck went by with a sign on it, you'd have to catch yourself from reading it.
Right.
Gosh.
It was walking a very, very, it was like a tightrope walking.
Was this a strain? I would think it'd be a tremendous strain on one. Didn't
But
your nerves get frazzled?
Well, that could be at any time. But on the other hand, because it's Baba, because Baba is with us, his presence, his being, it made the whole difference.
So he gives you a tremendous challenge, but he sustains you
That's
to meet
right.
the challenge.
That's right. As I say, if Baba hits with a hammer with the one hand, but he's holding you in his own other hand. He's not leaving you down there and doing this in his own hand. If the nut is to be cracked, he's holding the nut in his hand.
This comes as quite a shock to many young people, because after a certain period of just being wildly in love with Baba, an individual will suddenly start encountering not only some old problems in life, but even some more complicated problems. And so many young people feel, oh, I must have lost my grip on Baba. How can this happen to me? Something must be wrong with my attitude. They get terribly
Baba's
distressed.
only just begun working.
Yeah.
The honeymoon is over.
But the real work is beginning. But the important point, as you brought out, is Baba is sustaining that individual.
Yes.
If you'll only have the faith.
Absolutely. There is no doubt about that, Don. Otherwise, do you think it is by any merit or any effort of our own, effort, yes, but any merit of our own that we can keep on completely surrendered to Baba? No, it is He who helps and sustains. There's no doubt. It is His love. Primarily, it all comes down to that. It is Baba's love which makes it at all possible, even our very love possible. But He allows us to feel that we are giving, that we are serving, that we are loving. But he will be weak so that we can feel that we are supporting Him. But no, it's all the time He who supports, He who loves, and He who holds us to Him, He who tolerates us. Because, at this time I can talk like that, but to begin with, we too have been raw, hard material. We could have been more pliable. We could, we have grown, we have learned. But to some extent, because one can never grow enough to meet Baba's love. Never.
So the real challenge to the individual is to continue on in those tough times. The real challenge is to recognize that there is Baba's love to sustain them.
There's no other way. And Baba won't let anyone get out of that once you're in. They may feel afraid that they're lost. No. Remember that even while we're holding Baba's daman, He's holding your hand. Mm-hmm. And like when He would sit in that chair, it was in that last month, in looking weak, and now it was time for Him to go over to the women's side, and Erich and Francis both jump up and give Him a hand each to help pull Baba up from the chair, to support him. And Baba looks at them. I just happened to come at that time. And while He's holding their hands, ready to be helped up, He gives a slightest little tug. A strong, firm, tiny tug. And they both tumble over and almost fall over Baba and try to save themselves from not falling over Baba, And 1 second ago, one thought Baba was so helpless, so weak. And Francis said, Baba, you're strong. And Baba nodded. But never mind, help me up, said Baba, again being weak. So all this, everything is an opportunity for us to express our love, which he gives.
And to work through the necessary problems involved in one's sanskaras with Baba's love.
Definitely. Baba will never make it easy, but He always makes it possible. And He makes it beautifully possible.
Mani, you mentioned something. And
you see, it is something, it comes to that point when you would not do for yourself, but that same challenge, but you're no longer for yourself, you're for Baba. And therefore you can meet it, therefore you can do it, because that is what He wants. That is what will please Him.
So you find a new depth of strength to do it.
Absolutely. For us to see that Baba was pleased with something, that was absolute paradise. And when we had displeased Him in some way, Baba forgave.
Absolute hell.
Yeah, absolute hell. But we could not always forgive ourselves. But Baba is just Baba. Too vast.
Mani, you mentioned, and this was something I think that perhaps Erich also mentioned, that right up to the very, very last days before Baba dropped his body, he always still came down to the Mandali room once a day to sit with him, as he has for so many, many, many years, even
here
in his
in the
failing
hall.
health. Mm-hmm.
In the hall, it was till about mid-January.
Mid-January, but just 2 weeks before he dropped his body.
That's right.
That
I think
long.
it was 13th January, 14th, absolutely.
Yeah.
Up to your birthday, maybe.
Yes. And he sent me a birthday telegram.
Yes.
One of the most wonderful things. Think of doing that at such a period. But it impressed me so much that, so many people feel that habit or pattern or routine is completely phony. But here is a pattern, a routine that Baba insisted on right to the last minutes that his body would hold out, coming to be with the Mandali every day, sitting with him.
It is amazing that how his humanness was really revealed, his godness, more than anything else. And only when you experience it, you can really see it. It didn't make him less God, it made him more God.
So Baba temper is something like you never ran into in another person. Or
Yes.
Baba slyness is the slyest slyness you ever ran into. The way he would play cards, my gosh, you'd be thrown into prison if you didn't. So we all go on leading the new life now. We're leading into it.
Yes. And the new life, as I was telling James yesterday, I used to be scared to sing the new life song. You could feel the depth of the new life in when you sang that song or when you heard it sung before Baba. It just, although you felt you were on the fringe of the new life, really, on the beach of the new life, the depth of the new life was awe-inspiring.
That came through in the Sufi play so strongly that it amazed everyone. There was 1,800 people there, and that they sang that song, the Song of the New Life. It just was so stirring because you just knew that it was so real and sincere and deep.
But it was so big you couldn't face it. I couldn't sing it. It was only after Baba dropped his body that something has been freed. And I sing it. I sing it in the garden. I sing it in the bathroom when I'm bathing. I sing it. The new life.
Monty, what was hardest for you in the new life? Like Eric said, being cheerful was the hardest thing. Being cheerful at all times was the hardest thing for him.
Yes, yes, of course, being cheerful. We had not to complain. We had not to be sad or look glum. The Baba told the men. Baba was. The impact was more on the men, and we did it too. But the impact, the direct impact, the brunt was more on the men of that. And I still remember once when we had stopped of all places in a little touring cinema. And on the stage, we slept on the stage, just underneath the big theater screen. And it was nighttime, and I was making finger shadows on the screen, rabbits and all that. And what was it you saying?
About being cheerful.
Cheerful.
Yes, and at that time Baba was telling the men, and Eric was interpreting to all of them, the companions. And one of the things we heard Baba tell, you have to be lord and masters of your faces during the new life, no matter what happened. And that's tough. And even then, supposing you thought you could wear, but not wearing a mask, you couldn't make your face a mask, not in that way, because I tell you, Baba could draw even the tiniest waver somewhere within you out, and he would detect it.
But you had to be cheerful. What if you didn't feel cheerful?
But cheerful did not mean you had to go about laughing or something. If you did that at the wrong time, or grinning, if you smile like that, Baba would say, "What are you grinning at me?" Cheerful. You see, we still haven't got it in our vocabulary. Our dictionary meaning is different. Cheerful, and that cheer can be silent, a silent cheer. I mean, cheer can be absolute silence itself. Happiness is a stillness, and not a dancing and a singing is a happiness, is a stillness. And that particular thing, which it is yet not developed, which Baba is creating maybe, but he started molding us into that.
But like Eric said, maybe I didn't hear what he said, but there would be moments when you would feel anger, say. Now how can you feel cheerful if Baba's confronting you at that moment and angry at the same time?
Well, you just wouldn't feel angry. You ask Baba how you can do it.
Pull the curtain down on the anger part.
It would just pass.
Leave it.
Yes.
You pass it.
Yes.
What's that? There's an appendix part in Baba's God Speaks on Forgetfulness. the absolute necessity of the spiritual aspirant to have a technique of forgetfulness. Deliberately forget the thing that you have to forget that's
The
damaging.
control, because in Bangalore when we were with Baba was explaining that Elizabeth, Narina, Kitty, Margaret, and all of us, all the Eastern women were there, and something had come up, and Baba said, but what is the good if you did not get angry? I don't want stones around me. What would I, he needs all kinds,
Strong feeling but control.
He said, I don't want stones around me. If you don't feel angry and you don't get angry, so what? But to get angry, to feel angry, and then not to get it, to control it. At that time, that's what he says. I don't want stones around me.
Had enough of those around him a long time ago.
Or if you told yourself, oh, I'm a placid nature, I never get angry. You just think that and see what Baba does to you.
It's sort of like Baba opens up this new faculty of cheerfulness. And then when the anger comes, the energy that was in the anger is directed into the cheerfulness, just automatically. Is it something like that?
I don't know, because there were times when Baba would not want us to be cheerful. I mean, for us, in the individual way, I remember. And Baba said, I'm not well, and here you are. You're laughing and happy. And we said, no, Baba, it's just that something happened at that time. And we thought, well, Baba's there too. And we knew better, that balance, that sensitivity to Baba's pleasure, that comes after some time. It's not just a label, it's not cut in squares like taffy. This is coconut and this is cashew and this. No, it's something very subtle, flowing, like water, like a stream. And you have to adjust, balance, to that. And blessed are you if you can do that. But with Baba, one thing is certain. There's no compromise. You may think you can justify what you're doing. You have 1,000 reasons that come and stand before you, putting out their hands to help you. But no. It's either, when you have surrendered to him, as Baba said, it doesn't matter that you're good or bad. Give your all to me, then it's mine, it's no longer yours. And then he works with that, with the good and the bad, with our weaknesses. It's beautiful to watch how Baba could work with our weaknesses. I think more so than with our strength, because our strength is his.
It's already done.
Done. Did I start out with what?
You started out with mentioning some of the important things in the new life and the people who had not gone into the new life.
He had
and
asked
the challenge.
No, I just asked what was the hardest. I think that's what was the hardest thing for you to carry through with the new life. Right
in the midst of a talk, a mind can go blank. It's like thoughts come like butterflies, They sit for a while, and before you can catch them, they fly away. How often Baba has walked in this hall, up and down, up and down. And then Baba would be his hand on Kaka on one hand, sometimes, and Francis, sometimes Erich. And Baidul would be sitting there. And after a while, it must have come in his thought, in his mind, Baidul's mind, that if Baba could put his hand on mine and walk. So, how beautifully Baba does it. While walking, he stops there. Just a hand under Baidul's chin. And although the face looks the same, you can see him blossom, Never he would forget that. But unless he had some work and he wanted to get your emotions worked up to bring out something that he wanted brought out, then Baba might walk up and down 4 times and Baidul wouldn't get a glance till the thing, that That's when he wanted that way, but otherwise Baba would be. For one and all. Each one felt that it was just for me. You know, in Indian, we very naturally and easy say, oh Mara Baba, oh my Baba, oh my Baba. Each one can say my Baba and each one would be right.